Hey guys, welcome back to another lesson. Today we are working on the first assignment in term 3. So in this assignment, we are going to be writing our own rational equation problem. And in order to do that, we're going to use the example of Thane and his family. And if you scroll down to the very bottom of this big long lesson that reviews rationals for you, you will see the example of Thane and his family right here. All right, so in this example it says the garage of Thane and his family's house needs to be painted. Thane can do the job in 12 hours. So if Thane were to do this job alone, he could do it in 12 hours. The rest of his family can do the job in 10 hours. So the rest of his family, if the rest of them work together, it would be 10 hours. So how long will it take all of them? So all of them includes Thane and the rest of his family working together to paint their garage. So the question is saying if Thane takes 12 hours, the family takes 10 hours. If they work together, how long will it take? The way that we're going to set this up is we're going to set it up as a rational equation problem, which is something that you guys worked on in term 2, I believe. So Thane can do the job in 12 hours. So Thane's rate is one job in 12 hours. So you have one job over the 12 hours. So this is Thane's rate. Okay, then the rest of his family can do the job in 10 hours. So the family's rate is one job in 10 hours. So this is the family's rate. Now the question is saying if Thane, so you take Thane's rate 1 over 12, and you add it to the family's rate. Because the question is saying, how long will it take if they work together? And that plus sign there represents them working together. So you have Thane's rate plus the family's rate equals one job in how many hours? Okay, one job in how many hours? So the X right here is what we're actually solving for. We're solving for how many hours it'll take to do the one job if Thane and his family work together. Okay, so in order to solve this, what we're going to do is we are going to first find the common denominator, which is what we do in any rational equation problem. So we have a 12, we have a 10, and we have an X. So our common denominator must include like 12 or a multiple of 12, 10 or a multiple of 10, and X. Or it must include something that can be divided by both 12 and 10. So we have to think, what are the numbers that can be divided by both 12 and 10? So let's take 12 and let's just take multiples of 12. Okay, well 12, 24, that can be divided by 12 but can't be divided by 10. So let's go to the next one, 36, that can be divided by 12 but it can't be divided by 10. 48, which can be divided by 12 but not 10, and 60, which can be divided by 12 and can be divided by 10. So we know that our common denominator is going to have a 60 in it because that's the lowest common denominator, the smallest number that can be divided by both 12 and 10. And then we also have to make sure that that X is in our common denominator as well. All right, so now that we have our common denominator, what we want to do is we want to multiply so that each term has the same denominator. So step 1, let's go over here. Step 1, well first we set it up, sorry. Let's make these a little bit better. Step 1, set it up. And setting up the problem was this right here. The 1 over 12 plus 1 over 10 equals 1 over X. And then the second step is to find the common denominator. Okay, and in this case it was 60x. Step 3, multiply each term so that each denominator is the common denominator. And hopefully this is ringing some bells from term 2 of solving rationals. So we're going to multiply each term so that each denominator is the common denominator. Okay, so I notice this is 1 over 12. I want that to be a 60x somehow. So what do you multiply 12 by to get to 60? Well, let's see. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So 12 times 5 is going to give you 60. So I'm going to multiply this by 5, and I need to have an x there because the x has to be in the denominator. So I'm going to multiply by 5x. But what you do to the bottom, you do to the top, times 5x. Okay? Now I'm going to move on to the next term. What do I multiply 10 by to get 60x? Well, I multiply it by 6x. What you do to the bottom, you do to the top. And then what about this last guy right here? Let's do it in this rainbowy color. So x, what do I multiply x by to get 60x? Well, you just multiply it by 60. What you do to the bottom, you do to the top. So now I've got this situation where I'm going to be multiplying every term so that each denominator is the common denominator. And I'm just going to white out this section right here so we have more space. So take this time to write down some of the things we've talked about. Write down this process here on the right for solving rationals. I just want us to have more space to work this problem out. All right, so now let's multiply everything through and rewrite it. So I have 5x times 1, that gives me 5x, over 5x times 12, that gives me 60x, plus 6x times 1 is 6x, over 6x times 10 is 60x, equals 1 times 60 is 60 over 60x. So now we can see that we achieve step 3. Each denominator in every term is exactly the same. So then we can follow the rule that says if every denominator on both sides of the equal sign is the same. And this is really important that it's both sides of the equal sign, meaning there must be an equal sign included there. This doesn't work if there's no equal sign. It doesn't work if it's an expression, which means no equal sign. It has to have an equal sign, and every denominator on both sides of the equal sign has, that should say has, sorry about my grammar, hello, has the same. Or actually, no, I was right before. Meryl, come on. Is, if every denominator on both sides of the equal sign is the same, you can cancel them. So this is something that we learned in solving rationals. If every denominator is the same on both sides of the equal sign, you can fruit ninja cancel them. So I'm going to cancel, cancel, cancel. Now this is only true if every term has that same denominator. And I see every term separated by pluses and minuses, separated by equal sign. There are 3 terms here. They all have the same denominator. You can cancel them out. Once you cancel them out, all you're left over with is the numerators. So 5x plus 6x equals 60. And when I look at that, that looks like 400 million times easier to solve than the original rational that we had. So we know that we're on the right track because we're getting things that, you know, we look at and we're like, okay, we can solve for that. Okay, now step 5 is simply to solve. So I have 5x plus 6x. I'm simply going to combine those. That's going to give me 11x equals 60. And I'm going to solve for x. X is being multiplied, so I've got to do the opposite. The opposite of multiplication is division. What you do to one side, you do to the other. And then you get x equals 60 over 11. Or if I want to use my calculator, I get 60 over 11, which is 5.45. So I could also say X equals 5.45 hours. You're probably wondering, what does that even mean? What does that, 5.45 hours, what does that even mean? It means that if Thane and his family were to all work together to paint the garage, it would take them 5.45 hours. So this is an example showing us of the power of working together and also the power of solving rationals. So we're not completely done. Step 6 is always check your answers. And the only reason you want to do that is because what can you not have in a denominator? Well, you can't have a 0. So if X is in the denominator, if we ended up with X equals 0, we know that that's not possible. So there would be no solution. But in these ones, you'll always find a solution. Okay? So for the assignment that comes right after this lesson, create your own rational. All you're going to do is you are going to come up with your very own word problem. You're going to come up with your own problem about solving rationals. So it doesn't have to be painting a garage. It doesn't have to be Thane and his family. It could be my friends and I want to bake cookies. It takes me this many hours to bake cookies. It takes them this many hours. If we work together, how many hours would it take? Be as creative as you want in writing your question. So you're going to write it out. Then you're going to set it up. Set it up. 1 over 12 plus 1 over 10 equals 1 over x, like we did with Thane and his family. Then you're going to solve it. And then at the very end, you're going to write in a sentence what this means. So this means if Thane and his family, if I were doing that assignment, I would write, if Thane and his family worked together to paint the garage, it would take them 5.45 hours. And that would be my finishing sentence for the assignment. So hopefully this helps. Hopefully you guys are having a great day and great job.